Hello everybody and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today, and today we're taking a look at the destroyer aspect of gameplay in the new sort of submarine environment. So this is again the second submarine test that has happened, actually just ended on the 8th of October. Do keep in mind that all of this stuff is work in progress, so anything that I show here can and potentially will change by the time this makes it onto the live servers, and hopefully some of it does. So, destroyers, they are now the major anti-submarine warfare ship. They have, let's just say, quite a lot of ways to deal with submarines. And in fact, generally speaking, right now, my current feeling about gameplay is if you actually get located by a destroyer, especially one that is persistent in trying to hunt you in a submarine, you are in deep trouble. And it's something I will probably try to point out as the game goes by as to what kind of changes I potentially want to see between this destroyer and submarine sort of change. Another thing, of course, is that compared to the first version of ASW gameplay we saw, which was the whole, here's a couple of circles you chase, there has been some, let's say, improvements made, actually some pretty notable improvements. And one of those is the fact that now depth charges are something that you manually control with the G key. And you can sort of time your drops, you can determine how much you want to drop, etc, etc, etc. Alright, so I'm playing the Icarus, and for one thing, I really do like the British destroyer in the ASW role for a couple of good reasons. I mean, one of them is the fact that you do have a hydroacoustic search, which is beneficial at times, but more importantly is the fact that she's a relatively more agile destroyer. I tried playing the German one. She's not bad, but at times the agility is not that great, and if a submarine player is really patient, they might be able to even get torpedoes off on you in a way that you can't really avoid, especially because you're trying to close the distance. So, start of the game here, of course, this is a bot destroyer we're dealing with, so hey, get rid of the bot destroyer just because there is a submarine in there that I want to hunt, so if I can get rid of this destroyer, so much the better. Now, of course, this was a bot, so you can sort of see me playing much more loosey-goosey, not really caring about some things. I mean, against a human player, I would definitely not be doing this just because that's probably an invitation to get torped, but it's a bot, and the bot really wasn't all that interested in me, so okay, that's fine. Get rid of the destroyer, and now, of course, I can go and target the submarine, because the submarine is there somewhere. I do have the indication in terms of that little band of white, which is telling me that's kind of the direction where this enemy submarine is. Oh, okay. I am spotted by the Nuremberg, who is attempting to shoot me, but again, it's a bot, so basic maneuvers can throw them off. So there it is. There you can see the enemy submarines right there. The circle is there as well. Now that submarine should be at periscope depth. Okay, so this is one thing. You can shoot at enemy ships, no, enemy submarines, mind you, when they are at that periscope depth. But it's not that easy. Sometimes you get good hits like I did there. Sometimes you think you're aiming correctly, but you're not. It's a bit of a mixed bag. I've had situations where I was playing, like, let's say a light cruiser, and the submarine like this was in front of me and took shots at it and didn't hit because the shells were going like way short. Yeah, okay, so there we go. I'm getting off my depth charges here. I'm pumping out quite a bit of them because I'm thinking that the fact that this submarine was actually really close, I should have been able to get some pretty good hits there with those depth charges. Okay, hitting him a bunch of times. Still not dead, actually. Alright, so here's one of the sort of issues, right? That submarine, once it was in that kind of situation, was pretty screwed. There was no real way to escape. Pretty much the only option was to dive and try to dive really deep using the consumable and hope that's enough to deter me. It isn't, because the thing is, with destroyers right now, you have a hydrophone which picks them up at a certain distance, and once the submarine gets picked up at that distance, there is basically no escape at all. The destroyer, which is faster, is always able to track you. And I think this is something that does need to be changed, because I think if a submarine was to crash dive to its like deepest diving point, the destroyer should lose its ability to find you, quote unquote. So giving the submarine player some ways to also counterplay a destroyer, maybe juke it one way, juke it another, etc. If you don't, and you're constantly located, because I've played submarines and I've tried all sorts of things to evade the destroyer, a dedicated destroyer that's out to get you, zero chance of escape, which is not good gameplay design. So I do think that that needs to be remedied, where if you're playing a submarine and you get located by the destroyer's hydrophone, that you're able to be detected while, let's say, you are at the normal diving depth, let's say. But if you decide to use that consumable and crash dive, then you should be able to find a way to disengage properly. Because that hydrophone distance is actually somewhat significant as well. So you can get picked up from a pretty good distance, and it's really hard to try to get away. So that is something that I think needs to be looked at. Other than that, destroyers are super effective currently in their task. I mean, you'll see me sort of just go after the enemy submarines over the course of this game. Like, they become my only target. I don't really go after anything else. And the submarines don't really stand much of a chance. My own experience with subs is very much the same thing. Get picked up, and oh boy. Like, the minute you actually get located, and this located part doesn't even have to do with anything on the submarine in terms of ping or anything. You can just get within a certain distance and get picked up, and then you're in deep trouble. Of course, as a submarine, if the enemy destroyers are all dead, then of course you basically have a lot of freedom to do a lot of damage. My experience so far playing as a submarine, if I manage to last until all the destroyers are gone, then I have a pretty good time in the game. But if there are still dedicated anti-submarine warfare destroyers running around, especially ones that are just really actively out there to hunt me, then yeah, it's tough. It can be tough. So on the live servers, where you might have some games where you have very few destroyers, you can kind of see where this might turn into an issue, right? You want to give the submarine tools to do damage. You want to give them ability to fight enemy ships. But at the same time, you have to account for various gameplay situations, right? Okay, so there's the enemy submarine. This is the US submarine that I'm dealing with. Now, this US submarine has decided to, I believe, dive here. At periscope depth, this US submarine is actually very slow, only going about 3 knots. So you're basically crawling. Oh boy. Decided to come up on the surface. This is a really bad idea. Come to the surface and nope, diving again. Okay. All right, now this US sub is now officially underwater, and you can tell the positioning is pretty darn awful for that sub, because I know exactly where he is. And yeah, well, there go the depth charges, popping them off. Yeah, it's just no chance of survival here. And there it is. There's the kill. So here's the situation, right? What could the submarine have done? Well, had the submarine decided to dive initially, like right at the beginning, instead of coming up to the surface, just go straight down and dive, even though I will lose visual spotting of him, so no longer having the icon for the ship, I will get those circles. So when those circles are there, even if that submarine then used the consumable to crash dive down to the deepest possible depth, I can basically depth charge him, and if I don't kill him, I can just wait him out, essentially. So submarines, in a way, against a destroyer like me, is just like bad days. So another thing about submarines is you're really dependent on having friends, and this is why I think it'll be very interesting to see submarines in divisions. So not 2 submarines in division, but a submarine plus supporting surface ships. So for example, you have a submarine that is supported by a destroyer and supported by, let's say, a cruiser. Very interesting gameplay situation there, because, or maybe a destroyer plus a carrier, division with a sub. Currently, haven't really been able to test that kind of gameplay at all, just because Wargaming likes to hand out invitations kind of randomly. So not many people I knew actually got the invite, so didn't really have anybody to test that kind of concept with. But Judging by how powerful destroyers are against submarines, if the submarine had division up with, let's say, some friends in bigger ships that can bully a destroyer, then I can hypothesize that the submarine will have a lot more room to play with, because all these situations, these submarines are playing solo, and they're hoping that the bots will help them, or some other random player will help them. So let's say this submarine and this Nuremberg were actually teamed up, then there's no real way for me to hunt this sub, because the cruiser should be able to wreck me. Of course, I also have a bot battleship handy, so that helps. But you can sort of begin to see some of the issues that are going to affect the balance and everything for these ship classes. Now, I will say that this version of pretty much a lot of things, ASW wise and all that, has improved compared to the last version. It does feel a little bit more engaging to play. It's a little bit more fun. Okay, so you can see the distance that I'm actually able to locate, quote unquote, that submarine underwater. Okay, I don't know why this sub keeps coming back up, to the surface. I guess maybe to try to run away or something, but yeah, you can sort of see the distance that I can pick them up, and that's what makes it so challenging, because underwater, a submarine is basically going at half the speed of a destroyer, and as long as I can just have that circle, I will eventually find them, and there's not much that this sub can do. Also, these torpedoes got launched way too early. Sometimes what you can do is maybe wait it out, wait until the destroyer gets really, really close before unleashing those torpedoes, and you might be able to clip them if you hit in the midsection and get that kill. The surface gunnery against submarines is still a little iffy, as you can see. When you are locked on, quote unquote, to a periscope, you can't really tell where things are, so you just kind of slingshots in that general vicinity and hoping for splash damage. So here we go. This is what I was getting about earlier. There's very little counterplay here for the submarine. What I want to see is, after diving like this, that if I'm at this kind of distance, can the submarine now utilize that consumable, go to crash depth, literally disappear from my ability to spot them, and then now maybe do a juke maneuver to the left or to the right or something to get away from me. Otherwise, it's just free kill, essentially, because there's the depth charges and I'm just absolutely devastating the sub, and there's nothing that the submarine can do at all. Furthermore, one other thing is, even if that submarine had gone down currently in the current game, use the crash dive consumable, whatever, to reduce the damage, and doesn't take that much damage from the depth charges, I really could just wait him out, because that consumable only lasts so long, and I could just wait him out, wait for the depth charges to recharge, and then drop more on his head, because he cannot get away from the fact that I'm able to locate him. And that's something I think really needs to be worked on for the next test. All in all, though, the current ASW gameplay is better. It's more engaging. It's taking a little bit more from the destroyer player to do, and it's fun. It's much more fun to manually do something than to have it automatically shoot off. But I do think that some more work needs to be done for the submarine in order to have another version of counterplay to the destroyer. All in all, I'm relatively happy with the second test. I think some more improvements can be made, and hopefully when these things eventually make it onto the live servers, we have a class of ship that is fun to play against, and just fits nicely into the game as a whole, not ruining the fun for anyone. Anyways, what do you think? Let me know your comments in the comment section below. Aside from all that, take care, have a good one, and I'll talk to all of you again soon.